Wireless LAN Weekly, episode number 28, Aerohive Client Health and Teacherview.
Welcome to Wireless LAN Weekly, a podcast focused on the wireless networking professional. We aim to educate, inform, entertain, and inspire. Get ready to listen and enjoy. Now to our host of the show, Keith Parsons.
Welcome back to Wireless LAN Weekly. This is episode number 28, and today we have Adam Conway of Aerohive. Aerohive's been with us before, but they just announced a new feature that I think is very important, and I likened it to percentages. And when you're looking at a wireless network, the bulk of the problem you have is always going to be in the clients. And so Aerohive has just released some new software that lets you see a client health score. So we brought Adam Conway on to help us with that. Now on with the show.
Interesting facts, little-known tidbits, things you might not have known, short little bits to set your mind a-reeling.
If you'd like to test out your voice over Wi-Fi network and see if it's going to work prior to actually installing all your APs, one easy way to do it is to take an old hub. I've got a couple old 24-port hubs from the early 90s, big old beast, 10.5 hubs, and take them over to the telecom guys who are running voice over IP over wired network and have them connect up this old 24-port hub directly into the call manager and hang off of it, 10, 15 handsets, wired handsets. So now the handsets to the call manager are connected via a hub. A hub is a shared media or a collision domain. You don't need to have any VLANs or anything fancy like that on there. We just have all the handsets connected through a hub over to your call manager. Now try it. If your voice over IP runs across a 10.5 hub, which is very much like a wireless network in that they both have collision domains, try it out there first. So just an interesting thing you might want to try to test out voice over Wi-Fi, run the wired version through a hub. Because we can't change physics. Wireless networks have collision domains, they have a shared media, and we can test that out with only using a hub.
Things every wireless LAN professional needs to know. Gear up, buckle down, and stand by for the real techie stuff.
Well, hello. Today's guest is Adam Conway. Adam Conway is the VP of Product Management with Aerohive. We've had Adam on before talking about different things, and today we'll be talking about some of the new features that are coming out from Aerohive having to do with client access. So glad to have you with us today, Adam.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you had a little briefing that we talked about, and I'd like to share some information now that's outside the embargo time, especially because it talks about clients, and I just love the client side of wireless.
Well, yeah, and it does indeed. We've recently announced a capability called Client Health, and how the Client Health fits within another capability we have called Service Level Assurance. And it's a very nice feature for, what we believe, understanding the health of your network, but also, it can also make your network more deterministic. And we'll talk a little bit about that today.
Well, that's good. Yeah, one of the features I run across a lot of times are people have a hammer, they have APs, and they think that they're going to do all the work by blasting away at the APs. And even though you are an AP company, you're thinking about the client side, which, if you think about it, if you have, say 19 clients per AP, that's still 95% of your networks on the client side, not the AP side.
And that's exactly right. And, the big thing is most enterprises have APs from one vendor, and has a consistent behavior, whereas the clients, there's an incredible client diversity in the enterprise, and especially as we're seeing this enterpriseization of consumer gear, things like iPhones and other devices showing up in the enterprise, that what's expected to connect and connect reliably has expanded widely, and understanding how those are behaving in real time is often a challenge, and that's very much what this is designed to do. Should I dive in?
Well, yeah, just as a little lead in there, my grandfather was a mechanic and taught me growing up to never, ever buy a vehicle that had idiot lights. The little lights just say that it's too hot. By the time you see it, it's too late and you can't fix it. So the first time I read about your new health score with the little, red, green, yellow, and red lights, I was like, oh no. But after seeing what it can do and that you still allow me to see the details underneath, I'm all for this. I think it's a great thing. So go ahead and share with our audience what is the whole health score bit, why'd you add it, and what's it going to add for our wireless LAN professionals who end up using it.
Sure, and I will talk a little about my opinion on idiot lights as well. I think your grandfather was right. In many ways, idiot lights only tell you when something has already gone wrong. And I think you mentioned that as well, instead of actually giving you visibility into what's happening. And that's really what you want to know, is you want to know what's happening in your car or on your network. And client health gives us the ability to see how a client is behaving without having to dive into the details of the statistics of every single client, which is often just too much information. But also giving you kind of a gradation so that you know that a certain percentage of your clients are having issues and what types of issues they're having, which means that in many ways you have more visibility than what you had before. Whereas idiot lights would give you less visibility. This actually, I think, in many ways gives you more. And part of that has to do with the fact that, I think you would agree with me, us Wi-Fi guys like statistics, like our details. And it's because you can troubleshoot problems and you can see the issues under the covers. But when you get to the scale of a large network where you may have, tens, hundreds, thousands, many thousands of clients, you can't look at the details for every single one of those clients. It's just not reasonable. So client health is with client health, we have the goal of providing a single indicator to how a client is doing, how well it's connected to the network, as a top level view. And then when you see there being issues, you can of course dive into the detailed statistics that we all love. But what it does is it gives you that first glance understanding of what's happening on your network. And we do that with basically a classic stoplight, green, yellow, red. Green, of course, is a good connection. Yellow is a marginal connection, and red is a poor connection. And the way to think about this is that we look at this we look at a bunch of statistics for the client, mostly related to data rate and successful transmission rate. Successful transmission being clients, packets that transmit successfully the first time rather than going through a retry, and those sorts of things. And we use that to create this client health score. And a great way to think of it is, traditionally people when they look at how a client is doing, they'll just look at the data rate. Often what shows up in Windows or their Mac or whatever device they have, and it will say that they have a 130 megabit connection. And you go, geez, that's great. I'm connected at a very high rate. But that's only part of the story. There may be more details under the cover. It may be not transmitting at that rate all the time. That could be the receive and not the send. More likely, you can also have lots of retries and CRCRs and lots of interference under the covers, and not know that those things are occurring. So, in fact, while your laptop is telling you that you've got a great connection, the reality is your web pages are loading more slowly, and things are not functioning the way they are because of other issues.
I'll just interject here. I think we should all, as an industry, sue the Singular and AT&T commercial guys. The whole 5 bars has made people think that that's that's everything. And what you're saying here is there's a lot of things going on underneath that. It's not just the bars.
Exactly. It's not about more bars and more places or whatever tagline you have for that week. And being an iPhone owner, I can tell you that. That's not always the case. So basically, you can think of client health in some ways as being the effective data rate. And the reason for that is that we're looking at what their data rate is minus the unsuccessful transmissions. And if you look at that, then you can actually see what is the client actually capable of. And it's smart enough to know that even if you're a great client with a great connection right up close, but you have lots of retries, that's not healthy. Conversely, if a client's a long ways away and has a low data rate, but is very, very successful and continuously successful, then that is also that's also okay. I mean, they're still a healthy client, and we know that also because we calibrate this system. And we calibrate it by two things. First off, by the deployment goals. Is it a high density deployment or a low density deployment? High density could be a classroom or a conference room. Low density could be a warehouse, and then classic medium density would be like an office environment. And then you can also dive into the covers and configure that to be whatever parameters you want. And then we also calibrate it against what kind of client it is. If it's an 11N client, clearly we expect it to have better data rates than a B client. So, an N client transmitting at 11 megabits would be an unhealthy N client, whereas a B client transmitting 11 megabits is a very healthy client. So we have the ability to look at those details, calibrate it to the environment and to the class of the client, and use that to provide an at a glance understanding of the client health. Now, when you see a client showing up as red, yellow, green, you can actually click on it and get a wealth of information. You can take a look at the interference. You can take a look at the bitrate distributions. You can look at throughput. You can look at airtime consumption. All the details that you'd want to see in order to understand how that client is performing.
By the way, I like that you're sharing that information. You're not hiding it under the covers of how you calculate those. You actually share and tell us, where they came from.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, it's, very, anybody who's ever been through a troubleshooting situation, which would include you, Keith, knows that the more data, as you're dealing with a specific issue, often more data is better. Of course, when you're at a high level, not more data isn't always better, and that's where I think client health comes in. So the part about that, though, to mention about as you get up to the larger scale networks, if you look at a list of clients and you see their client health sitting next to them, it just shows up as an icon next to the client. That's okay for a small network, but as you get into a large network, you need a different way of managing and visualizing it, and that's where another capability of ours, a feature we announced about a little less than a year ago, called service level assurance, comes in. And service level assurance was a kind of a groundbreaking feature when it was released. It was kind of the first of this type of feature where we were able to monitor in real time every client on the network and evaluate their throughput to understand whether they were getting the throughput that you wanted them to get, let's say 2 megabits per client, whether they were not getting it. And if they're not getting it, are they not getting it because they aren't doing anything? It's just a quiescent client, or if it's or they're not getting it because of some other problem, and the some other problem clearly shows a problem, and then we would alert that. And we do it through a nice glanceable interface that gives you a percentage of the clients that are suffering this issue over time. So it gives you a nice time-based interface that shows you this. And then provided the ability to automatically mitigate the service level issues by providing more airtime. And at that time, we talked about doing more in the future. That throughput, which is what we were focused on at that time, was just the beginning, and that we were going to do more in the future. And client health fits very well into that and becomes the second, I think, major pillar of service level assurance. Now, as we talk about this, there's a few other features we've added to service level assurance as well, but I wanted to focus more on this client health because I think it's the most meaningful part of this announcement.
Well, I like the color coding and that you've tied client health back into the SLA, but it's not that it's just static. I mean, there's a lot more than just reporting that this guy's having a problem. Tell us about what your service level assurance can do to help mitigate it real time.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the beauty of it. A big part of it, just understanding what is out there is often is a big deal. But the ability to actually real-time correct what's happening, I think, is where you start to get into the level of determinism that people want out of their wireless network. As people move their computing devices from wired to wireless, and wireless in many cases becoming the primary network, determinism becomes incredibly important, and this is something that does that. And been able to react to issues that you see out there, and like we mentioned, with the SLA is very much built on that, and we did that with throughput by boosting a client's airtime. With client health, we've actually improved. We actually focus on moving clients, because usually what's causing a client health problem is because they're connected to a radio that's overloaded, or they're too far away from the radio that they're connected to. And the first goal should be, let's get this client moving to a better radio where they can have a more reliable connection and a healthier connection. And that's what we do. And when I say move to a different radio, that doesn't necessarily mean a radio on a different access point. It can be moving a client from 2.4 to 5 gigahertz, which is often known as band steering, or it can be moving to another AP, which is called load balancing. We can also do the opposite of band steering, which is move clients from 5 gigahertz to 2.4, which may provide them more health as well. Although usually it's the other way around. We can certainly do all of those based upon an understanding within the network about where this client would be best served, and that's enabled by cooperative control.
Well, can you explain how? I mean, our audience definitely understands some of the techniques and the protocols and how packets move around wirelessly. How do you go about doing your band steering?
Sure. So band steering, which is band steering or load balancing, function in a very similar way, and we treat the two the same, or it's two very similarly, I should say. In order to encourage clients to connect to a certain radio or discourage them from connecting to another, the least invasive way of doing that is to manage probe responses, and we do that through a fairly sophisticated back-end system that coordinates between APs to say. To help so that we know what the best APs and best radios for those clients to associate to are, and we have those clients either respond faster to probe requests, or in some cases when radios are totally overloaded, just don't respond. And the beauty of that is that that system doesn't require any forcible moves. There's no disassociations, deauths, which are used in other systems, which can often cause client connection issues. So it fits very well within normal client behavior. And so when a client then asks to connect to an access point, or I should say asks to connect to 5 access points, if only the best 1 or 2 or 3 respond, then it will connect to only one of those 3, and it won't connect to one that's not good for it to connect to. So it's a pretty effective solution. And I should add, that works, like I said, for both load balancing and band steering. In the case of band steering, of course, it's based on which radio responds. It can be 2.4 or 5, responding based upon client load.
And that's controlled between the APs, not at a controller, obviously.
Exactly, and we refer to this as load balancing and band steering as distinct items because that's sort of the names the industry has given to it. But if you look at it, it's actually more about managing the radios that you have out there. And if an AP has one radio, then it's only one AP per radio. But it can also be 2. Of course, there's certainly 2 radios per AP as well. And with 2 radios per AP, you can manage. Not only are you moving from this AP to this AP, but what radio on that other AP is the best radio, and then using the control plane, which I think I talked about in the last talk on your podcast, using the control plane, which is that system that enables the APs to talk to each other, and basically provides that group intelligence amongst the APs. They can negotiate who should respond to this one client to make sure, of course, they get connected, but also to make sure you're not connecting them to an overloaded access point.
So how does vendors use a more proactive kicking people off the network to force them to move? Yours is more of a kind of a sounds passive, waiting for them to come back and ask to get in. How does that net out in the end? Do clients move accordingly, or do they get stuck on where they were before?
That's a great question. Classically, as you mentioned, APs have booted clients off overloaded access points, and the clients may still choose to come back. But the thing about booting them off is that you're sending them a message that can cause different behavior in the client. So when you send a DOF message to a client, sometimes that client will just associate to another AP, which is the expected and hoped for response. But that's more often than not, that's not the case. More often than not, it'll either reconnect to the AP that it was connected to previously, which means that you're net zero. All you've done is disrupt that client for a period of time, which is not good for voice clients, as you know. But in the worst case, and there's actually a lot of very common clients that when you push them away, they just sit there. And sometimes it even requires a manual intervention by the user to get it to reconnect to the network. And that's just not enterprise grade in my opinion. I mean, having an experience where when you're connected to an overloaded access point, you're already frustrated with the performance, and then they disconnects you in order to give access to the other clients. That's not acceptable. And I think what most people have found is that those sorts of systems where they did the more aggressive pushing clients off, people just turn off the feature and not use it because it was too disruptive. The beauty of this is that you can leave it on and leave it on with no cost. And it works, it works statistically. Some clients will, if you give them a chance to move, they're going to move aggressively, and that's great. And some clients won't. But your goal is not to move every client off of an access point or move every client to another radio. It's to move some percentage of them. And if you can manage that through this mechanism, then that gives you essentially a load balanced network without negatively impacting client access.
Well, the other part of the announcement was something you call Teacherview. Can you explain to us what Teacherview is and why it's not only important for teachers but other people who might want to manage networks?
Sure, and this is actually a very exciting feature. I'd say it's exciting for me as a product development person. It's one of those rare times in the life of a product manager or a product developer where there truly is kind of a eureka moment. We were observing teachers in classrooms. We have a few customers that are K through 12 focused. Actually, we have quite a few quite a few K through 12 customers, and we were watching these teachers with they'd have a classroom full of laptops. We'd watch them walking up and down the aisle continuously through the class rather than teaching. It was such an incredible waste of time, this is just them trying to make sure the students are on task. They're not on a different website. Their laptop is on. That it's connected. These things are, and essentially what we're seeing is that you basically end up having this reluctant administrator. This teacher ends up being an administrator, whether they wanted to be it or not, just because of the way the technology has changed. And they don't have the right tools to manage the students. I mean, their tools today are walking around. And Teacherview is our goal of really putting the right tools into the teacher's hands so that they can overcome the fact that the laptop screens are on the wrong side, essentially, and that they can't see what the students are doing when they're at their desks and the teacher's up front. And then also give them the tool to direct students and to make the computing situation in a classroom more effective. So what Teacherview does is, and I won't go into the back end details, at least not yet. But what Teacherview does is it enables a teacher just to log in, and based on the time of day, they're going to get their class shown, the current class shown on a screen. First login, it'll go straight to that screen, and it immediately gives you a sense of status of all of those students. It has them all listed. It has a little wireless status indicator on it, which just so happens to be the exact same thing as client health. We don't call it client health for the teachers because they don't know what client health is. All they care about is the status of those students. It also tells things like the throughput that those students are experiencing, what website they're on, and the history of what websites they have been on. And so it gives them an immediate view of what's going on without walking around. Now, what makes Teacherview even more powerful, though, is that it gives the teacher control over those laptops. And so it allows them to control their access to the internet, to the local network, to a variety of different things. And it also allows them to direct them to websites. So, managing where students are on the web is often a very important thing to do in a class. And it gives them the ability to say, I want all my students to go to this huge, long 50-character URL, and I'm just going to copy and paste it in this window and push it out to the students. And it does that. And it does all this monitoring and all this control in a completely client-independent way. So there's nothing you have to install on the client. It's all managed from the network side, and it provides for just another tool in the teacher's arsenal to make the teaching that much more effective.
It sounds like you're applying a dynamic captive portal.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's one of these things where we at Aerohive have been talking for years about all the policy enforcement that we have and the captive portals and the way that the APs work together to manage a group of clients and deal with a group of clients. And this is really a great actualization of that. We literally can switch firewall rules on the fly for clients and drop their access to everything but the mail server or whatever you want it to be, just at the click of a button of it for a teacher. And it's smart enough that it's able to group the students so that students connect to many APs. You may have 2 APs in a classroom, or you may share an AP amongst many classrooms. And it's smart enough to know that these students may not all be on the same AP, and there may be other students on that AP, so it groups them by class. And it changes just the policy for the people in those class. So it does all of these things, taking advantage of all these functions that we've had in our product in a way that's very visible. So all these features that we've been talking about for years, all of a sudden people get it. People get what the benefit of all these features are, and it's been actually it's been a very nice thing to go pitch to schools.
So these things have been announced just last week. And what's the availability?
The availability was last Friday for client health for the client health capability, and basically in 3.5. The release was called 3.5 R1, and that included client health, the SLA, a bunch of other features, some really nice interface enhancements and other capabilities in our product. Teacherview is going to be released towards the end of this quarter, so just in the next month or so, and will be available in a first version we're calling Teacherview Cart. And Teacherview Cart is designed for schools that have, just like it sounds, more static configurations, carts, those sorts of things, and for smaller schools, maybe a school with only maybe a private school or something like that where there's only one campus. We're following up that release with a full version of Teacherview in early 2011, which will have the ability to work across an entire school district and actually collect information from student information systems and that kind of thing. So it's a very powerful functionality that's both in the product today and is coming, and just in time for the school year. So that's the other nice part about it.
Well timed. Well, where could someone go to get more information on the new 3.5, the client health, and Teacherview?
Absolutely. So the information is all available on our website. We do have a video which goes through client health in more detail, and actually will show you the screens that I've described in this podcast. There's also, there's just a wealth of content on our website, including a nice solutions brief on Teacherview to go into more detail, especially how the back-end system works. Keith, I forgot to mention one thing as well, and that's that 3.5 is also available at no additional charge to our customers. You wish so for customers that have support contracts, it's all available at no additional charge. All the 3.5 features, including SLA and Teacherview, Teacherview Cart, I should say. One thing to point out is that Teacherview full version will probably be delivered on a separate server for scalability reasons. So the price on that is TBD.
Well, it sounds like we lost Adam there right at the very end. So go to the show notes and we'll have links there for the solutions brief and the videos and the Aerohive website. Well, thanks to Adam Conway of Aerohive to share some time with us today on client health and Teacherview. I think I want to have Teacherview to have it in my classrooms because it makes my job as a wireless LAN instructor much easier to be able to turn off the internet at a moment's notice or kind of drive people toward certain websites I'd like them to use. So looking forward to Teacherview in the next rev of Aerohive's OS. Thanks for listening to the show today. We, again, look forward to your feedback and ideas on what you'd like to hear on Wireless LAN Weekly. Feel free to go on the website, look at the resources that are available to you there. And if you'd like to subscribe, we'll start sending out newsletters in September. So sign up for the newsletter and you'll be able to get a newsletter in your email box probably about once a month or so. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you next week.
Wireless LAN Weekly, a podcast focused on the needs of wireless LAN professionals. We look forward to your feedback. Please leave your comments at the bottom of the show notes, or email feedback on the show can be sent to feedback@wirelesslanprofessionals.com. If you'd like to leave a voicemail feedback, just call 24/7 and leave a message at 1-801-481-9018. Until next time, this has been another production of wirelesslanprofessionals.com, a place to educate, inform, entertain, and inspire.